Hi everyone, Krista Cowan here with another episode of The Barefoot Genealogist. Today we are talking about asking genealogy questions and where to go to get those answers to those questions. Now, I have been a teacher for a long time. I teach here at the local university. I've done that for about 18 years. And one of the things that I love is when students come up to me after class and ask questions, because it means that they're actively taking part in their education. They want to learn, they want to clarify things they didn't understand. In a live teaching environment, it's really easy because the student can ask a question and then the teacher can ask clarifying questions that then get us to an answer. In an online environment, that's a little bit more difficult. So what I hope that we can do today in just a few short minutes that we have together is to actually figure out how to ask very succinct questions in an online environment that get us the answers that we need. So that's what we're going to cover today. Let's go ahead and dive in. Let's just talk first about the different kinds of questions that get asked in online forums in genealogy. The first are the how-to kind of questions. We get questions all the time from people who want to know how to use a specific software program. They want to know how to use Family Tree Maker, or how to do something specific in that program, how to create a report that does something that they want it to do, or how to do something in an online program, like how to search for a specific thing in an ancestry database, or how to do something in your online family tree. So lots of specific how-to questions around software programs, both desktop and online. The other kind of how-to questions we see a lot in online forums are how to find certain kinds of records. Do certain kinds of records exist? If they exist, where can I access them? Those are great questions. We also get asked a lot of questions that ultimately boil down to, how do I apply the genealogical proof standard? And those start bleeding into this concept of research-specific questions. Now, if you are new to family history and are not familiar with the genealogical proof standard, if you go to the Ancestry YouTube channel, you'll find an entire playlist labeled Genealogical Proof Standard. And I would encourage you to, at the bare minimum, watch the introduction to that, even if you don't watch the entire series. Now, this research-specific questions become, that's the place where we really need to do some work. One of the things I see online is that people, especially those of you who are new to family history and certainly, don't know any better, so it's not anything you're doing wrong necessarily, just something that needs to be improved upon, is that you'll throw a question out online, and then people who've been doing this for a long time get a little bit frustrated because they're not exactly sure what you're looking for, or they dive into help because the genealogy community is always eager to help, only to find out that you've already done all the things that they just spent a half hour or an hour of their life trying to help you with because they didn't understand the question. And so a lot of those research-specific questions fall into these concepts of help finding a specific record, or determining if two records are for the same person or different people, or figuring out what to do next, like having a genealogy roadblock or a brick wall and not knowing what to do or what to ask. So I'm going to give you an example of a research question. We'll talk about the specifics of what makes it a good research question, just so that you have something that you can model. And then we'll talk about some specific points that you can use to ask good questions. So here, if you spend any time with me, you know about John O'Brien, and he's my big brick wall. John O'Brien was born 15th of May, 1841 in Ohio. We're not sure where in Ohio. We have that only from census records, which only list state. On several records, there is conflicting information about his birthplace. It has been listed as Ohio, Ireland, Iowa, but Ohio seems to be the most consistent, and in those records that were most likely where he was the informant as opposed to another member of the household. The earliest record that we have for John is an 1861 Civil War enlistment record in Iowa. Now we know this is him because it lists the exact company that he enlisted on, and that is on his tombstone in Arkansas. So we've been able to connect the dots to know that we have the right John O'Brien. When you're dealing with John O'Briens, it's a super common name, and so making sure you've got the right record for the right person and not for somebody else has been a real challenge in this particular case. Now, I have located him in the 1880 census, living with the family that he would ultimately marry, the wife in this particular family, after her previous husband died. And so I know I've got the right man, but he's living in Arkansas, so nowhere near Ohio or Iowa. So I've been looking for him in 1860 and 1870. I have looked in Ohio and Iowa and Arkansas, and I've been unable to identify him. Now, I just told you a lot more than was written in that particular statement on your screen. And I did that intentionally because what happens is oftentimes we do this. We meander through a question as we write it like we talk, and then the problem is that people either don't make it through the question because it's too long, they'll just skip over it, or we give too much information that sometimes confuses things. So you'll notice here I've written a very concise statement. John O'Brien was born 15 May 1841 in Ohio. The earliest record we have for him is an 1861 Civil War enlistment in Iowa. I have been unable to find him in the 1860 or 1870 censuses in Ohio, Iowa, or Arkansas, where he was living in 1880. Can anyone help? So here's the key things about this. I've given the information that I already know. Very often we see people post questions where they just say, I'm looking for John O'Brien and I can't find him anywhere. That's great. But then we have to, some people use the analogy of pulling teeth, right? Then we have to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth with you to find out the information that you already know about this person. So provide the information you know about him right up front, okay? Also, some people say, I'm looking for John O'Brien, I can't find him anywhere. And so then people will go out and start searching records for you, and they'll say, oh, well, I found this record. And the response then is, oh, well, I already had that record. Oh, well, I found this record. Oh, well, I already had that record. Okay, well, then what is it that you are looking for, and where have you already looked? So in this case, I've provided information that he was born in Ohio. The earliest record I have for him is a Civil War enlistment in Iowa. So I've given the name of a record I found and where. That also allows other people to go and look at that specific record so that they have some context if they're going to help me in my research or help me do a search. Then, rather than just saying, oh, I can't find anything out about him, or I need to know everything about him, I'm asking a specific question. I am looking for him specifically in the 1860 and 1870 censuses. And I haven't been able to find him in the places I've looked. Now, maybe he's living somewhere totally unexpected. Maybe he's living in Oklahoma, and I just haven't checked there. Or maybe he's, when he was in the Civil War, it took him down south, to Mississippi or over to Tennessee or down into Kentucky or over into Georgia. Who knows, right? I need to figure out maybe where that unit of his service unit went. And maybe he just stayed there, and that's where he is in 1870. So I start to kind of think through, as I formulate genealogy questions, one of the benefits to me as a researcher is that I start to formulate some of those other places I can look or other things I can do. Now, if you're new to family history, those things might not occur to you. And so for those of us who are answering these genealogy questions, those are some of the things that we can do. We can say, well, have you, rather than just jumping in and solving the problem for people, we can help teach them a little bit. And we can do it in a kind way, and we can do it in a non-condescending way where we can say, well, have you traced where that particular unit that he served with in the Civil War, where they served and ultimately where they mustered out? Because that may be where you'll find him in 1870 instead of him going home or going down to Arkansas where he ultimately ended up. Maybe in 1870 he is still in the place where his service unit mustered out. So that's something that as a responder I can help the person asking the question start to think about. Okay. Another thing that as a responder I can do is start to ask questions about other records that they might not have considered. Well, you're looking for him in the 1860 and 1870 census. He would have been in his 20s and headed into his 30s. And so did he get married during that time? Is there a marriage record somewhere that you can locate that will help pinpoint a more specific location where he may have been between 1860 and 1870? Are there newspapers that you've checked out? Maybe back in the hometown in Iowa where he enlisted, maybe there's some information about his service noted in a newspaper sometime in that decade. Again, that might help you pinpoint where he is. Have you checked city directories? Have you checked birth records for possible children? Have you identified all of the men by that name in these two censuses nationwide, created a list, and then started checking them off one at a time as you discover that John O'Brien is not your John O'Brien? So all of these are things that as people who are answering research questions, we can start to direct or help people. Again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to help people apply the genealogical proof standard, and some of that then means we're looking for specific records for people as we're helping them, or we're working through some of these problems with them so that they know what to do next in their research. Sometimes it means just helping them answer the question. So let me just give you some specific places where I could post a particular query like this one. Now, I'm just using mine as an example, but I'm hoping that you can use the same principles to create your own genealogical questions. So here are some of the places where I might go to post this question. On Ancestry, we have message boards. You're going to find the message boards. Here's my John O'Brien. You're going to find the message boards under Help. Let me make my screen a little bigger here for you. Under Help, you'll see message boards. And under message boards, you have the option to choose by location or by surname. So those are the different ways you can do that. Most of the locality message boards, for not just for the United States, are broken down by state and then by county. So depending on how that jurisdiction works in other countries, you might see by country and then by state, or how, different countries do that differently. But in the United States here, it's by state and then by county. And so I would maybe post this query in a Washington County, Iowa message board. Washington County is where he was from when he enlisted. That's what it stated, that he was from Washington County when he enlisted in the Civil War. I might also post a question, and this could be a general research question, a how-to, or a specific research question on the Ancestry Facebook page. Ancestry has Facebook pages for most of our geographical regions. So if you just go to facebook.com/ancestry, it will redirect you to the US page or the Canadian page or the UK page, depending on where you are from. And as a user, you can just scroll down to the posts by page. You can post here on the page and ask a particular question. We have a super active community, and they're always really anxious to engage and to assist each other. I mentioned the Iowa message boards, but Facebook also has a lot of really great Facebook groups. So I could come in here to Facebook and I could type in Iowa genealogy in the search box here, and you'll see that there are public groups, several of them, for Iowa genealogy. Some of them have a few hundred members, some of them have a couple thousand members. Some of them get really specific, like these are Norwegians from Iowa, or specific counties in the state. If I click this little search icon, it will actually give me a complete list of all of the pages that have to do with Iowa genealogy. And I could scroll through those and find the one that most closely matches. Also, keep in mind that there are pages on Facebook. There are also groups on Facebook. Pages you can typically post on whether you're a member of that page or not. Groups, typically you cannot post on unless you join the group. And so you find the group that most closely meets your needs, again, and click join, and then you can post to that particular group. Lots of active groups on Facebook. So in my case, for this query, I might post on the Iowa Genealogy Facebook page about this particular thing. As I mentioned on Ancestry that we have locality message boards, we also have surname message boards. So another place I might post my query is on the O'Brien surname message board. So those are just some ideas of places where you could post your genealogy queries. Always try to make your query specific to the forum that you're posting in, though. You're not going to go on a Facebook page for, Kentucky genealogy to post a question about a man who never lived in Kentucky. Similarly, you're not going to go onto the page of a particular software company and ask about how to use the software from another company. So always make your query specific to the group that you're posting in. Some final just words. These are mostly reminders. I think I've mentioned all of them. Be specific in your query, but not too wordy. If people want more information, they will ask for it. Be sure to share where you've already searched so that the people that just want to dive in and start helping you don't redo your work. Be sure to ask a question. If you just post some information, sometimes people aren't clear about what it is that you're looking for, and so be sure to ask a specific question. For those of us who respond to genealogy queries, I'm just going to encourage you to be kind, to be helpful, and to be encouraging. If this isn't a query that you can feel like you can help with, pass over it. If you don't think they've asked the question the right way, take into consideration that maybe they're brand new at this, and rather than being snarky or rude, again, just pass over the question or ask helpful questions that will help them to understand how to ask better questions. I always want people to be encouraging. There are people coming into family history new every single day, and we want them to join our ranks. We want them to be as excited about learning about their family history as we are. So hopefully you will be able to answer those queries, and those of you who are asking questions, ultimately maybe you'll be able to answer questions someday as well. I still post queries even though I can answer a lot of questions, and so it goes both ways. We're all in this together. We're all trying to discover more about our family history. So until next time, this is Krista Cowan. Have fun climbing your family tree.